Come on, come on, come on! No. Why do you hate me, Die? Hi my friend and welcome to the channel. I am Richard Genders and you are watching Genders Gaming. This is a channel dedicated for analog games. We got die games, we got board games, we got RPG games, pen and paper, you name it, as long as it is unplugged, we are going to show it here. I say we, but it's really just me. So I guess that I am going to show it here. And today we are going to take a look at Mighty Boards Episode 2, Vengeance, Roll and Fight. This is exactly what it says. You take some die, you go out and roll them, and hopefully you manage to beat your opponent. I am going to show you the setup of this game today. I'm going to give you an overview of the rules and the gameplay, so once you have watched this video, well, you are ready to take on the enemies and go out there, throwing some dice, taking your little pen, putting down the results, and go into battle. This is the setup of the game. In the middle of the board we put the fighting die. Depending on how many players you are, you should have a different amount of die. This is a 3-player game, so we have 35 die in the center. But if this would have been a 2-player game, it would have been 24. And for 4 players, it would have been 46. You can also play this game solo, but in that case, it's about how hard a game you want. For an easy game, you have to have 20 dice in the pool. For medium, 16, and for hard, 12 die. Each player then gets a erasable marker, looking like this. They also need to take a player board. And then they need to pick a character that they would like to portray as, and put at this little square right here. Each hero have their own starting items. And you can see which item belongs to your hero by looking at the color. This color should match your character's token. You put the 4 starting items down in the item spots. It doesn't matter how or where you put them. Besides the items, you also need to take the ability tiles. These will also have a color matching your hero. These should be placed next to the board. Each player also get 2 player aids cards to keep track on how a round goes and what you need. Each player also get 2 player aid cards. Players will also get a random den board. This is where the fight will actually happen, and you should place your little player token on the spot that says start. Then we need to hand out 1 random boss card to each player and place it next to their den board. We then need to look at the boss card to see how much HP they have. Then we take the den board and we cross out the same amount of hearts on the boss life track. Up here we have the 3 flashback die and a flashback tile. I will tell you more about this in a bit. So this game is about you portraying as a hero, going into this den to beat the crap out of different enemies. When you beat the crap out of them, you get points for, well, beating the crap out of different enemies. You will do this by using your abilities, items and traits on your player board. How we use this is that we roll the dice, and depending on what we get, we will mark out different spots on the board, activating certain abilities. This game is played out during 4 different phases, but before we get into the game, let's take a look at the player boards and the den. This is your player board. Up here you have your basic abilities, and the training track, this represents your XP. Here you have your health. The loot track, which I will tell you more about later, will give you different benefits. And of course you have your items down here. And this is where you will write down your scores. On the den board, we have, as I said before, the starting location. The den board is marked up with different rooms. As you can see, there are red dotted lines, and this means that there's a door between and that the rooms are adjacent. We can also see that each room has a gray little spot. This is crossed out once you have visited that room to easily keep track of where you have or have not been. Some of the rooms also have specific challenges. These will give you more points if you manage to complete them. Besides the boss, we of course also have a bunch of other enemies. These are called minions. And there are 5 types of minions. We have the black ones, which are grunts. We have the tough guys, which have more HP. Then we have the blockers, the yellow ones. We have the henchmen, the red ones. And the gunmen, the blue ones. And all the way down here is where the boss is located. And down here we can see the boss's health. In the game, we will use the marker to either cross out enemies that we have defeated, or marking a space on the den, but we will also use the eraser every now and then to clear some spaces. So this game is played out during 4 different phases. The first one is the flashback phase. And the first thing the players does in the flashback phase is to take exactly 4 die from the fighting pool and put to the side. Then one player needs to roll the flashback die. That player simply rolls the 3 white flashback die and then put them on this little board right here. These 3 die here will represent what kind of actions we will be able to do in the flashback phase. Now each player may do those flashback actions, but we can only do the actions that are available according to the die. But what actions can you actually do? Well, let's take a look at that. If you get the training symbols, you get to mark 2 training spots on the training track. But if you get the purchase symbol looking like this, like some knuckles, you get to mark 1 available spots above one of your items. This means that now you have charged this item, and this one is now activated for you to use in a future round. On this die, you also have a symbol with the training symbols and the purchase symbol. Here you get to choose. If we get the heart symbol, we get to either heal 2 wounds or get an additional health. If we get the monoculars, this means that we can do a recon action, meaning that we get to cross out one of the monoculars on either our basic abilities or bot abilities. When you cross this out, this will make this ability available during the fighting phase without needing to assign a die to it. Just note that some of these abilities has 2 monoculars, meaning that you would need 2 recon actions to make this active during the fighting phase. Some abilities like this one here does not need a die, meaning that you can't use the recon action on this one as there is no monoculars. The last one, the star, will let you loot. So either you can cross out the leftmost space on the loot track, or you can choose to do an action instead. That was the flashback actions. But as you can see here at the bottom of this tile, there are actually some more symbols. This indicates that you may do one of those actions down here as well. But besides doing that, you can also use your experience points to buy ability tiles. Because, well, you do not get all of these bought abilities from the start of the game, if that's what you thought. No, you need to buy them. To buy them, you will cross out any experience you have and pay the amount stated in the top left corner of that ability tile. These are the amount of experience that you need to spend to activate and buy this ability. Once you have bought this ability, you can either place it on top of any of the basic abilities or to the side of the boards. Now, you can only have 4 active abilities at a time. So if you would like to get a new ability here, you would need to either discard this one here or place the new one on top of any of the basic ones. That was the flashback phase. Hopefully we have managed to get some cool things out on our player boards. Maybe we have done some healing. You will definitely need to do some healing every now and then in this game. And maybe we have managed to get some cool abilities. But after the flashback phase, it's time for us to start rolling the die. Remember, we took 4 die from the main pool at the start of the flashback phase. And this is where we get to roll them. Now, You can roll how many you want to, and you can roll them how many times you would like to. The only thing you cannot re-roll yet is the little health symbol here, the one with the little drop on them. These you cannot re-roll at this time. But what do you actually do with the die? Well, once you have managed to get the required die to activate any of your basic abilities or any of your bot abilities, you get to place these die next to that ability next to your board. And now you have activated that ability for the fighting phase. When you have managed to do this, then you get to re-roll the drops. Just be aware, because some of these abilities have this symbol down here with a number 1, meaning that they can only be activated once. And if you have activated the monoculars in the flashback phase, you may not assign die to them either. And remember that some of the abilities have this symbol here, meaning that you can't assign die to them. They are always active. If you ever come in a situation where you just can't reroll any more die because you have too many of these little drops here, you can actually assign it to your health track, just as you would with any of the other die. This will let you reroll one of the other drop phases. In this way you will actually be able to get more die out on the table. If you ever have less than 4 die on your hand, you should refill from the common pool to make sure that you have 4 die on your hand. Now, if you ever come in a situation where you cannot take the amount you need to get 4 die, you simply take whatever you can. Now, once you have assigned a die to any of the abilities here, you may not change them. You can't move them around, you can't re-roll them, they are locked to that ability. You can quite easily see what type of die phases you need to activate the different abilities, as is stated on the ability itself. The punch, for example, needs 3 knives, the fire needs 1 pistol, and 1 pistol or a knife to be activated. That was the roll phase. Hopefully we have managed to activate a bunch of cool abilities. If not, well, better luck next time. The first thing we need to do in the fighting phase is to take away any drop-phased die that we have on our health track. Then we need to take our cool little pen here and we need to cross that square out. Now, in the next rolling phase, we cannot assign any drop dice to that spot because it's crossed out. We would need to heal first before we are able to put in drop phase dice there again. But we can do that later, right? Well, hopefully. So now we are in the fighting phase and we get to use our abilities that we have just activated. We can use them in any order we would like to do. We do not need to go from left to right. We can start from the right and jump in the middle and then go to the left and so on. As long as we have the dice needed to actually do the ability. So you can choose to activate the different abilities in any order you would like to. Just remember that you can't change the order of the ability itself. So charge here, for example, tells you to move and then hit, meaning that you would need to first move and then hit. Some of the abilities will let your little character here move into an adjacent room. When you move into a new room, you immediately need to cross out the little box up here, indicating that now you have visited that room. If there is an active blocker in the room that you want to move into, you can't. You first need to take them out before you are able to move into that area. A hit action will let you deal 1 damage to any of the enemies in the same room as you're in. Most of these enemies will be taken out with just 1 hit. But the tough guys will need 2 hits to actually be taken out. Meaning that when you make 1 hit, you simply mark that by crossing out one of the hearts. When you make the second hit, you cross them out completely. If you're on the same space as the boss, and all of the grunts in that room has been taken out, you can start dealing damage to the boss. Every time you deal damage to the boss, you mark that by crossing out the leftmost space on his health track. And then we have the shoot action. Now, you can only shoot enemies that are in adjacent rooms. You cannot target an enemy that is in the same room as you. But if one shoot ability lets you fire twice, for example, you may split them up between the different rooms. If or when you are ever wounded, you cross out 1 health on your health track. But if you ever heal, you get to clear 1 health. The jump action will let you jump between rooms, meaning that if you start here, you can jump through this room and land in any of the adjacent rooms. This does not count as you have visited the room, which means that you do not cross out this space if you jump through it. You may not complete any objectives in the room that you jump through either. But the big blockers here does not stop your jump. Then we also have the ability called Evade. Evade will let you mark 1 minion, and be aware I said mark, not cross out, because they're not dead. They're simply inactive. And you can do this on any minions in your room or adjacent rooms. But at the end of the resolution phase, they will become active again, meaning that we will erase their little mark, and in the next phase they're back to life again. The cool thing here is that in the resolution phase, you will still get to loot. Some of the abilities will actually let you kill one of the grunts, and in this case, even hit another one. When you have used an ability, you simply show that by taking the dice and put them back to the common pool. And this was the abilities or actions that you can do. Just remember that there are actually quite a few abilities here that will let you do other things. And don't forget your items, because you can combine them to do a lot of different crazy stuff. For example, if you use your hidden blade, you get to kill someone that has evaded. Or the first aid kit will turn your dash action into a move, heal, and heal action instead. So there are a lot of different combinations you can do to really get the results you want to. And not forgetting your little player card here as well, because there's a text on your character's card, and this might be good for you or it might be a little bit worse for you. Meat Boy here, for example, cannot leave a room if there are 2 or more grunts alive, which can put him in quite a bad situation actually, because he can't move out of there and just need to take a punch. All of this combined turns this game into quite a lot of things happening in the den. When you use an item, don't forget that you need to expend them. You will do this by crossing out one of the boxes that you have marked before. When all of these boxes have been crossed out, you cannot use that item anymore. As mentioned before, some of these rooms have objectives. And depending on if you have managed to complete these objectives or not, you get to mark the number on the left, giving you this score at the end of the game. There are a bunch of different objectives in this game, but to complete them, you need to be in the room where the objective is. Depending on what is showing on the objective, there will be different things that you need to complete. This one here says that you need to have visited at least 9+ rooms to get this score. This one means that you need to have dealt damage to the boss to get the score stated. That was the fighting phase. Hopefully we have managed to take out some enemies, visit some rooms, or maybe we have even gotten a punches on the boss themselves. Now we move into the resolution phase. And here we need to look on the board to see what we have actually managed to do. But first we need to wipe out any monoculars that we have used during this round. And if we have not used them, well, too bad. You will need to reactivate them during the rolling phase in that case to use them again. And we also need to see if we have gotten any loot. Because if we have managed to clear out a room with minions and visited the room, we get the loot in that room. And we can choose to either cross out one of the loot boxes here on the loot track, or simply do one of the actions available. We do not need to be in the room where the loot is to be able to collect it now. Meaning that we could have been there and cleared out the room, visited and everything and moved on, but now we still get to take that loot. To show that we have taken the loot, we need to cross out the little star in that room to indicate that now we can't loot that room anymore. We also need to receive wounds for each henchman in the room we're in, or for each shooter in an adjacent room that we're in. If we ever cross out all 3 of our health, then we need to cross out the leftmost space on the beating track, and then clear our health again. These up here will limit your amount of die you can use. The first one will put you down to only 3 die, and the last one will kill you. When the resolution phase is over, we need to take away these dice here and cross out the round we're in. This game will last until round number 4. When number 4 is done, we go into the scoring. When we have gone through the 4 rounds and we're still alive, we go into the scoring phase. Now the game is over and it's time for us to see who have won. The first thing we need to look at is our loot track. The leftmost available number on the loot track, meaning the ones that are not crossed out, will give you that score. In this case, 7. We need to look at our leftmost available number on our training track. Then we need to look at the value on the leftmost not crossed out number on the boss track, in this case 6. If you have managed to completely defeat the boss, you get an extra 5 points. We need to add in any of the completed objectives, but you get -1 point for every active enemy in your way from the room you're in to the exit of the den. And this makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, you came into their home and beat the crap out of them. Of course they won't just let you walk out the door before beating you a little bit as well. And that's how you play the game. You roll your little dice, you activate your abilities, you buy new abilities, you move around out on the map fighting the enemies, and then in the end of the game we see what we have actually achieved by calculating the scores. This game has an easy setup, it's quite easy to learn, but it's quite hard to master, because you need to learn the different abilities and how to combine them in the best way possible to make the most out of your round. Also, there's not as many dice as you always would like to. You see the other people rolling their dice, placing them out, and sometimes you get quite stressed out feeling like you don't get what you really want to get that combination. But that's all a part of the game, and that's all a part of making this game a little bit more challenging. Now, this game is basically you sitting down by yourself, rolling dice and assigning die. There are not that much interaction between the players in the gameplay itself. This is basically a solo game up until the scoring. So if you like a game where you have a lot of interaction around the table, well, this is probably not it. Because here you sit down, you roll your die, and even though you do everything simultaneously, you sit in your own little bubble trying to figure out what you want to do. I have played this game solo and in a group, and I actually feel like it worked better in a solo mode than in a group mode, because you sit down and you just try to work out what you want to do. There's really no need for you to talk with the other players because there's no trading, there's no interaction in the story or anything like that. But the game overall is really fun. Fast setup, easy to learn, and there's a lot of things for the player to do. The one thing that I would have wished a little bit more of in this game is actually a story. I don't know why I'm in this den beating the crap out of these guys and women. I don't know what brought me here, and I don't know where I'm going afterwards. I mean, this is episode number 2, and I have not tried episode number 1. So maybe there's a thick background story that I just do not know of. But in this one here, well, there's really nothing. There you have it, my friend. That was Vengeance Roll and Fight for you from Mighty Boards. This game is, like I said, it's easy to learn. It's quite fun to sit and mark the little things out on the map, place your little dice, try to get the right combinations, which is not easy. As I told you in the beginning of the game, you can play this solo, but in that case you need to set up the little dice here in according to which level of difficulty you need. You also need a timer here to represent the different players picking out the die, and from there on it's pretty much the same thing. You just keep on playing, sharing out those little punches to everybody that comes in your way, and trying to get the most scores that you possibly can, trying to defeat your own result the next time. And like I said, I think it feels like, for me, that this game is more of a solo game. I would not bring this out on a game night with my friends, but I would bring it out if I sit home alone and just want something easy, light, and fast to play. If you want to know more about this game, my friend, there will be links down in the description, so be sure to check that out. If you like my video, why not throw in a comment for me? Why not subscribe to the channel? It gives me a smile on my lips every time I get a new subscriber. And until next time, people, please keep on spreading that board gaming love I know you all have. Peace.